Today I have with me Chandler Watts from Avid Exchange. He is the Alliance Manager and our direct point of contact at Avid for any questions we might have. So what's Avid's core mission and how does it align with the needs of nonprofits, especially kind of fund accounting users and MIP users?
Absolutely. So, top level, Avid is we are looking to transform the way that middle market companies receive, manage, and pay their bills. And we do that with currently about 9,000 customers. We've got 1.3 million suppliers that are in our network today that are getting paid by us. Over the last 5 years, about $250 billion has gone through that, but more so how we truly aligned with nonprofit businesses is we want businesses to pursue their passion, and we want to inspire businesses to realize the value and potential that can be unlocked by eliminating paper invoices and paper checks. So with that, the main goal is to give back to these companies as much time as we can to truly focus on their mission instead of focusing on accounts payable.
And that's huge. I mean, we're seeing it already with just kind of the ROI of what this saves organizations and all of the other things that can just kind of be eliminated as part of this process. We did some time studies at some organizations, and it's amazing how long the AP process truly takes them. And if your organization hasn't done a time study, it's recommended that you do for 1 month and just see what are these things taking and graphing it out and looking at all of that. So how does it truly streamline the accounts payable process? And how is Avid Exchange unique in this space versus kind of some of the other competitors?
Sure. So the streamline is simple. There's a seamless API integration with MIP. And that is going
and
to.
What does that mean? Let me pause you for a second, because everybody kind of hears what an API. Explain that to me for those that don't understand and what that means.
Sure. So we will essentially have a two-way street of data that is coming directly from that ERP. And we'll probably get into this, but we can actually schedule. So the first thing that you'll do when you sign up with Avid is schedule a sync. So the data sync can be as frequent as you want it. It can be multiple times a day. It can be weekly. It could be monthly. You can also go in there and do a manual sync. You can also select the data types that are going to be synced, so that let's say you add a new account, you add a new vendor, and they roll up to that data type, then they are automatically going to be synced as well. So we can talk about what that end-to-end workflow is, Dennis, and essentially you're going to have an internal approval system. Now with Avid, it is fully customizable. You can have thresholds for, hey, if it's over 50K, this needs to go to the CFO to sign off. If it's under, it can just be a simple manager approval. Now, once that is approved, that is going to be sent back to MIP, where the payment is going to need to be initiated. Once that payment is initiated, that's when the AvidPay process begins. Now, there are lots of details around onboarding and us collecting banking information and truly taking over that entire relationship and process, finding out the preferred payment method of that supplier. And then once that payment is made, all pay status is then going to sync back to MIP. The status, the dollar amount, and then if they want to log in to AvidPay to see proof of payment, any payment and we'll get into the reporting later as well, but any type of proof of payment and the true audit trail of when that invoice came in, the line items, the dates, everything is going to live there. So that's kind of the data that's going back and forth. What makes us unique there is going to be the third of our business, so over 500 people, that their only job is to support our supplier network.
and let me be clear, I like research, right? So one of those things is I went on Google and kind of called up Avid and looked at the corporate offices and everything else. It's a monster building
Yeah.
based in Charlotte, North Carolina, that the team is working out of. I mean, I've worked with team members there that are in the office that day, kind of, and the background noise and everything else. So I mean, they're truly U.S. based and here to support you. And my interactions have all been with U.S. based support. Would you
That's
say
right.
is the entire team U.S. based, or is it only partial part of the team?
So the entire team is U.S. based, and we only make domestic payments, and that's something. We're good at that, so we stick to it.
Absolutely.
You would not believe how many people will say, "Well, what about Canada?" And we say, "No, that's not the United States." So we make it very clear that we stick to our guns. It's not on the roadmap. Even for us to do international wires. There are tons of other players that do that, and we have partnerships with them, and we will send back, deals. Hey, we've got somebody who needs domestic payments. Half their business is international wires. Let's work through this together, and we're trusted in that regard.
And that takes a lot as an organization to kind of say, hey, which is my lane and what do I want to stay in? And saying, you know what, we are just doing this. And as most of my nonprofit business and MIP users for 25 years, the number of international that you're dealing with is under such a small percentage that you're in the right place. So that's great to see. So what are some specific ways AvidXchange helps MIP users save time on their day-to-day activities? And let me back up one step, because you talked about kind of two sides, and I think that got lost in the conversation. Is there's an Avid kind of invoicing, and then there's an AvidPay, right? They're two separate from one another. Can you just take a second and talk about each of those sides, just to make sure that we're super clear that says, hey, you know what, whether it's pre-invoice or we got the invoice is kind of one side of the equation that Avid will handle for you, or the second side is kind of the, hey, we're going to handle the payment side. So kind of end-to-end solution with MIP in the middle, kind of talking in both directions.
Absolutely, yes. So the full suite would be end-to-end AP, and that's the digestion of the invoice all the way to initiating the payment to the vendor. So how the invoicing works. The customer will have their own PO box for physical invoices, or they will have their own email address for AvidXchange, invoice digestion system. So the invoices come in, they are going to be scanned by OCR. There is going to be a three-way match functionality there. So we're going to match it to the PO and the receipt. And then a third layer, which is pretty awesome, is that we have a team of human indexers. They're going to go in and check after that OCR runs, make sure an I isn't a 1, make sure a 5 isn't an S, which results in a 99.97% accuracy on those invoices.
That's huge. 99.97. Did I get that right?
It's massive. That's something we're proud of.
You should be, because that takes a lot to make sure to get that close on an OCR reader and ensuring the accuracy.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic job.
They're going to read the index header as well as every line item in those invoices. Now, after that's digested, it's going to go through that customizable workflow that I touched on earlier. Once it's approved, AvidPay process begins. So as far as time saving there, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is going to be the check cutting aspect, but also the folks that are receiving those invoices by hand and then going in and coding them. If you look at the breadcrumb trail of a classic invoice digestion, it is step after step after step after step. You get the invoice. You hope that somebody opens it maybe the week that they get it. They're going to have to go in and code it. That's typically going to be by hand. So let's hope that nobody is fat fingering any of those numbers that are going into your ERP. And again, that what lives in that ERP is our lifeline. the more accurate the data is inside that ERP is going to make or potentially break your business, right? For me, it's Salesforce. If something is not in Salesforce, it's not real. It never happened. So obviously the manual invoice can take, I would even say X amount of time. It is hard to put a number on that. But as far as check cutting goes, we've heard as much as 10 business days out of the month for people to work through check runs. And that could be one person in AP. It could be a team of folks in AP. Also, them cutting those checks and trying to maintain the relationship with potentially hundreds or even we've seen thousands of vendors that somebody is working with, the amount of time that takes up, some businesses that may allot for it, but that also brings to mind, I remember my very first sales training. I asked, hey, who truly is our biggest competitor here? And they will tell you it is the CFO that does not want to change one thing about their business. It is not another solution we're going up against at the finish line. It is somebody who is terrified to digitally transform their business.
And think about everything that goes into that, right? It's when you say, hey, it's 10 days a month, that's part of that. That's prepping it, it's printing it, it's someone signing it, it's stuffing it in the envelope, it's getting the payment out, it's then kind of the check coming back, it's then voiding it and reissuing it, and all of those different steps. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is very time consuming. And when you do that time study, you truly see, like, yes, how long does it take to sign, and what is that cost and that rate associated with that, and what does it take for postage and ordering check stock and making sure that all those things are there. It's a big challenge for organizations.
Yeah. So again, the time saving with the checks and invoice, I think that's why we're in business. It's very obvious. Another thing is reporting. So lots of AP professionals mapping donation journeys through a traditional accounting program is, it could be like looking for a needle in a haystack, right? So what we do is we can easily generate reports for these donors, for these board members, for stakeholders, which could have taken weeks prior. And with us, you click a button, right? And everything comes out. And also kind of getting into that, visibility for folks like that. You can also grant read-only access to somebody who might be trying to perform an audit, where they can go into your portal and see everything. Now, they won't be able to manipulate it or export anything, but they will be able to view everything. Obviously, we talked about saving time. I think with time comes money. Right? So how can we save time? How can we save money? The cost savings, as you're well aware, they're, I would like to say, instant.
Agreed. I would say that the second that you're live is you're saving resources and dollars on day one. There's not many solutions out there, Chandler, that I could say, you know what, measurable ROI. This is an easy one to look at the ROI and measure it and say, here is what it became. That says a lot, because a lot of people talk about the ROI but can't really justify it. You were going to share kind of some insights on that as well.
Yeah. So, processing a paper check is never going to be less than $3 ever. You talk about cutting the check, you talk about mailing it. Postage, what is it? 62 cents for a stamp, nowadays. So it's like, all right, you've got the time, you've got the money. And I think people, obviously going to the grocery store and seeing somebody cut a check for milk and eggs, you don't think about that costing any money. But a business who has a check run of hundreds of checks, and they're buying envelopes and they're buying stamps, and then somebody is, spending time, even if it's just stuffing them and taking them down to the mailroom. If they're doing that days and days and hours out of the month, that adds up. Also, outside audit services, paying somebody to prepare your team to be audited, that is not free.
Yeah.
And we have the ability, again, to anything that an audit team would ever want from an invoice or payment history perspective, we can generate. So really, all of those AP costs we like to think are completely washed away. And at the same time, this is scalable internally and externally. And what I mean by internally is that if you bump up your volume, it's something we can handle. We have unlimited users. We do not charge per user, so you could have as many people as you want inside this, Avid portal. Now they can have different permissions inside, and then externally, the scalability is adding vendors. It is not on your plate. If they get added to the ERP, that data syncs over to our supplier network, and we take it from there.
And I think that's a huge one where you talk about approval processes and review and those items, and right, and there's no per user cost to kind of create the workflow and the additional levels and the visibility that a lot of other solutions have, right? That's a huge one.
Yep. Great.
So talk to me. I've sat through a couple of Avid implementations, and I must say, you know what? I'm super impressed with the team. It's a very well-structured, well-organized implementation with clear deliverables and a clear process. Can you kind of walk me through what an implementation process looks like?
Absolutely. So we have a pretty strict onboarding timeline.
Oh, it is strict. Let me be very clear. It is very strict, where it's like, hey, you're committing to it and going forward with it. So
that is exactly right. Now, that, of course, like anything else, is going to depend on the engagement from the client. Some people will sign up and say, oh my Lord, when can we have our kickoff call? Other people might say, oh my gosh, we have got to get our ducks in a row internally, make sure our data is correct. So first thing first is we schedule that project kickoff call. There is going to be, in this first phase of initiating and scoping that project, there's going to be process consulting, there's going to be technical consulting, there's going to be an actual a thorough education on AvidPay and how it's going to work. We're going to request certain datas and documents from you, and then we're going to define that project timeline. After that, we kind of move into this configuration stage. So we're going to configure your portal the way that you would like it to be. We're going to test the integration, make sure that the data that you want moving is moving in the right areas. There's going to be setups with bank accounts. There's going to be a virtual card setup. We're going to set up your check printing status. We're also going to clean up your vendor list and standardize that. So if there's 500 vendors inside your ERP and you're really only doing business currently with, let's say, half of them, we are going to clean that up and make sure that we are only using the ones that are active and that we're not flooding our system with stuff that is dormant. So after that, we are going to start testing. So we are going to be testing that data, the actual end-to-end validation process. We're going to go through pilot payments. We're going to do more training within the portal. After that testing is done, we're going to prep for go live. Once we go live, we are going to kind of guide the vendors, through this contact process. We're going to explain the ongoing support that we provide. And then we are going to continue to have weekly calls with the team to make sure that expectations are met and it's going the way that, you planned and that we advertised. Lastly, we're going to optimize. So if there's something in the portal that we set up that you're not really using, or you're like, oh my gosh, it would be great if we had this, we're going to optimize the portal. There's going to be kind of targeted education sessions to people. Hey, like, this is great. We learned about this. We would love to dive into this piece. Then we can get granular with education there. Then we're really going to dive into adoption. Are these people using this? If they're not using it, why? We're going to stabilize that entire process. And then this kind of onboarding part is closed out. And then we go into full-on maintenance support, customer success, supplier support, all the kind of ongoing services that we have with your dedicated teams.
That's exactly how it's gone. And I mean, the path forward is very clear. The support from the team and the process that they go through is very structured. It delivers results at every step. There is flexibility in it when needed, kind of, as you said earlier, kind of timing wise of like, hey, we want to get started right away, or hey, we want to delay. We've seen both. But I think it's also important to call out that says, hey, if you're just doing the payment side, the average implementation takes about 6 weeks, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah,
if you're just doing pay and not invoicing, it's about 6 weeks, and it's 1 to 2 hours a week over those 6 weeks. But it's absolutely manageable. And a lot of the challenge is, in my experience, is coordination with your existing bank and just making sure the right accounts are set up with the right signatories, with the right controls, with all of that. It's not so much about the Avid side. It's more the challenges in working with your bank. Right. That's my experience. Chandler, would you agree with that?
No, I agree. And thanks for touching on that, the timeline aspect as well. So I've seen AvidPay set up in as short as 14 business days. And I've also seen, due to lack of engagement, it could take 3 to 4 months, right? So again, we are folks that are serious about this, or as I'm sure it is for you. That's who we really, really like to work with. And when it's top priority for somebody, that onboarding process that I explained is fast and smooth. And again, I want to touch on what kind of happens after, in a sense of continued training and continued customer support. So that kind of is, there's 4 buckets there. So there's going to be customer success, like I mentioned. So those folks are going to manage the relationship with the customer, focus on that engagement, adoption, retention, and satisfaction through everything we've talked about, the strategic business reviews, health checks, managing escalations internally. Second is going to be a customer education piece. So there's going to be tools and content of how folks can best use AvidXchange, learning videos, educational webinars that are going to include, Q&A. We have user communities where folks in the same industries can get together and talk about how they're using AvidXchange, as well as.
I wasn't even aware of that one. That's a new one for me. So that's fantastic.
Yep. It's great. Folks love that. And then lastly, customer care, and then customer advocacy. So we want to provide frontline support, borderline on a personal level, right? So it's timely, and we can, resolve any type of issue as quickly as possible with the engagement of the customer. And then the advocacy piece is, we want to collect feedback. We want to provide enhancements if possible. Hey, it would be great if we could see this. It would be great if in our reporting we could export this little piece. So that's something where we are constantly trying to improve, listen to the feedback from our customers, take notes. If we hear something from 10 customers, then you know what, Dennis, it might be something we need to put on our roadmap and work towards.
Let's be really clear. The Avid process is super stable. You guys have done a fantastic job with the API integrations. They're tight integrations. They're knockwood kind of bulletproof. They've stood the test of time. They're reliable and dependable, and the platform really works well. But the fact that you're still engaging and enhancing beyond kind of just resting where you are is huge, because a lot of other places will just kind of say, hey, you know what, we're done. We got to this point. Let's kind of keep just rolling it out what we got. But that's great that there's continued investment in the software and the solution. So what else do you want to share with me today?
Just to touch on the growing needs of organizations like these. there's kind of 3 points that I want to reiterate. First of all, again, this is completely scalable. Unlimited users, unlimited vendors, wherever your business wants to go, we will go with you. We have a whole team focused on the needs of nonprofit clients. We have a partner team, we have a product team, we have a marketing team, we have a customer team, we have a whole leadership business segment organization focused on truly evolving for what the wants and needs of these clients are. And then lastly, just one more time about that customer advisory board. Those people meet regularly. That is not a, hey, okay, Q4, let's talk about what these folks are saying. That is a couple times a month, these people are getting together and saying, hey, what is going on?
Wow.
In the space? How can we improve here? And I think
because we've all been on those advisory boards, right? You meet once a year and you're like, okay, great. We got together. We got the checkbox. The organization got the yes, we have the advisory board. They got the checkbox. Okay, we had a meeting. Everybody got together. Happened once. We can say that we're doing it. But it sounds like yours is really an engaged advisory board on kind of steering the solution going forward and providing that real feedback of what they're seeing.
And selfishly, we just want to reduce churn, just like you and everybody else in this ecosystem. What can we do to keep these folks happy and keep them on our solution? Now, I think it'd be great to wrap up with maybe just a success story. And, what we typically see is we'll have, and this is what I'm speaking to here, is just a community clinic that reached out to Avid, and they said, we need an AP solution that's going to scale my business. We need to simplify this process. We need to have greater visibility into the flow, and they want better control. And also, they want to eliminate turnover. So they really struggled with retaining a qualified AP staff, long approval processes, bills are getting paid late, folks are manually cutting checks, signing those, mailing them out to vendors. Everything I just named, we completely take over. So with essentially flip of a switch, those are all eliminated. They also talked about going paperless. Well, with us, the end-to-end process can be completely paperless. If you want digital invoices in a truly automated workflow, that's the business that we're in. If you want your payment process to happen in seconds with a digital payment approval, that is all we do all day, every day. And the results there, yes, it's time saving, it's smooth operations, but circling back to how we kicked this whole call off, Dennis, we are giving these folks back time in their day to focus on the mission of their business. The flexibility goes through the roof. They don't have to worry about late payments. They don't have to worry about their suppliers receiving those payments on time according to their terms, and there's no impact on that relationship.
Huge. Because let's be clear, right? The average person stays at a job, if you're lucky, for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the days of past where, the same person has been in that same role for 20 years. No, they're staying 3 years and then they move on to someplace else. Yeah. Now, nonprofit's a little bit different because some people stay just because they're so connected to that mission and that cause. Right. That it's just easier they'll stay for that purpose or that calling. But when someone walks out, there's no documentation usually. The gear, then there's no one in the position, so you're short-staffed, kind of covering that position for a period of time, and then you got to train the new person on a process that hasn't been documented or anything else. Having this kind of outsourced solution of handling it from start to finish really kind of minimizes the risk and also gives dollars back to the bottom line. Let's be clear. There's That's right. Savings involved in it that says, hey, you know what? I minimize my risk. I maximize my investment. and we don't have that they walked out the door today. Now, what do we do for AP checks next week? Who knows the process? That goes away. We don't have late fees. I mean, the amount of cost of late fees that organizations are paying many times just because they got passed around, too many signatures, too much approval process. And it all has to be approved because we all have those federal grants we got to report back on, and we get it. But that savings needs to be factored in as well. There's so many good reasons why to move to Avid. It just makes logical sense in so many ways.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I appreciate your advocacy and support through everything we talked through.
And let's be clear. I've done MIP for 25 years, right? And we have choices, right? A lot of companies come and say, hey, become a partner. It's the right move. We're going to do this for you and that for you. And we're very selective in our partnerships, and our customer base and our client base know that we don't take on things unless we're certain it's going to work and benefit them. And that's why we're not the jack of all trades. We kind of stay in our little universe of MIP and supported solutions around that. And that's why we made the decision to partner with Avid, because it was the right move. And because the ROI was so clear in my mind and so instantaneously, that's why we made that decision to partner. And we don't take that lightly, because we are the trusted advisors of our clients.
Yep.
And we don't want to do wrong by them. So, Chandler, any final closing thoughts or things you want to wrap up here with today?
No, well, I think it's important to point out that it's people like you that are a lifeline of our business. You know, you are working with customers that you have already sold. Yes. They trust you. Yes. And if you put a solution in front of them, you are putting your business on the line.
Hugely.
And if we can come through and deliver on what you have told this customer, then the possibilities are endless. Yes. Truly, we are very successful in this sector. My team has already hit their Q3 goal with, you know, what was 6 or 7 weeks left in the quarter. This is an absolutely smoking segment of business at Avid. We have a track record to prove it. We have the resources in place. And again, it's folks like you that the trust, the advocacy, and most importantly, the understanding. You know, we get there are some partners that will throw stuff over the fence, and we get on the phone with them and they're like, oh, well, we're actually only sending 11 international wires over to Europe a month. Okay, that's not a great fit, you know. No. So having the oven fully preheated makes our life easier. We get to manage expectations through the sales process, and then you're along for the ride. It's greatly appreciated. And
it's a structured implementation. It's success all around. So many great reasons why to consider Avid. And I think what we also deal with is, you know what, the nonprofit community is slower to adapt or take on new things. And we're seeing this in a ton of different areas. Chandler, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we are the largest video provider of free educational content for the MIP community. And we did that back in 2013, right? And the market really wasn't ready for it. But now in 2024, the market is fully engaged in it and everything else. So you're seeing that, and I'm sure that's why you're hitting your numbers as well, because the market's kind of ready for this next move. Kind of post-COVID world, we kind of started getting there, and now it's like, you know what? Now we're looking at even more efficiencies. We looked at integrations first in the COVID realm, and now we're looking to buy back even more time. So Avid Exchange is definitely kind of the next move organizations should be looking at.
We're certainly not playing catch up. You know, to your point, you know, we're locked and loaded and ready. So it's great to, you know, be in a position at this company and have people that I trust that can make this happen, and people like you that are going to vouch for us on the front end.
Well, Chandler, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and have a great afternoon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dennis. Talk to you soon.